Good morning. Today, Wednesday, we're going to be continuing with our work on fractions. We've done a little bit of work already about what the denominator is and the numerator. And today we are learning that fractions can be bigger than one whole, they can be smaller than one whole, and they can also be equal to one whole. So fractions can be bigger than a whole thing, smaller than a whole thing, or equal to a whole thing. And I'm looking that you can recognise and group fractions that are equal to a whole, less than a whole, and more than one whole. So, first of all, over here I've put down 4 fractions. And I'm going to read them the way that you probably read them. 1/8, 4 quarters, 6 halves, 3 eighths. That's probably the way you'd usually read them. But there's also another good way to read fractions to help you understand them a bit better. Instead of saying 1/8, you can say 1 out of 8. 1 out of 8. 4 quarters, 4 out of 4. 6 halves, 6 of 2s. And 3 eighths, 3 out of 8. I wonder if you can think for a minute what these fractions might look like with shapes. And if you can maybe predict which ones do you think are equal to a whole. We did some work with that yesterday. I've drawn what these fractions look like by looking at the denominator, which, if you remember, is the number at the bottom, the number down, the denominator. So this is 1 out of 8. Here's our 8 pieces. And 1/8, or 1 out of 8, means you're colouring 1, or you're talking about 1 out of 8. 4 out of 4. Denominator's 4, so your shape is in 4 equal pieces. This is 4 out of 4. So you're going to colour in 4 out of 4. 6 halves. 6 halves. Well, to get 2 halves, that's one whole thing. But I had to draw 6 halves. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 halves. So I've had to draw more than one shape to get my 6 halves. 3 out of 8, the shape goes into 8s, 8 pieces, that's the denominator, and it's 3 out of 8. 1, 2, I can put one over here, 3. There's 3 out of 8 coloured in. So what we're doing today is we're looking to see whether these fractions are smaller than a whole, equal to a whole, or bigger than a whole thing, one whole thing. Let's have a look at them again now. So this one is 1 out of 8, 1/8. 1 out of 8, is it a whole thing? Is that whole piece coloured in? No, it's only one piece out of 8. So this one there is less than 1. Less than 1 is shaded in. It's not all shaded in, it's only 1/8 shaded in. This fraction here, 4 quarters, the shape is split into quarters and 4 quarters are coloured in. Is all the whole shape coloured in? Yes. So 4 quarters is equal to 1. That means it's the same as one whole thing. This next fraction, 6 halves, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Have we got one whole thing, or have we got more than one whole thing? Well, in fact, we've got 1, 2, 3 whole things. So 6 halves is more than one whole. It's actually 3. And for the next fraction, 3 eighths, we've divided the shape into 8. And there's 3 coloured in, 3 out of 8. There's only 3 out of 8 coloured in. So is this fraction smaller than 1 whole, the same as 1 whole, or more than 1 whole? 3/8 is smaller than 1 whole. Okay, so if we look back at the fractions that are less than 1 whole, these 2 fractions are both less than 1 whole. The numerator is smaller than the denominator, 1 out of 8 and 3 out of 8. So when the fraction is less than 1 whole, the numerator is smaller than the denominator. When fractions are equal to 1 whole, like this one, 4 out of 4, the fraction is the same as 1 whole because 4 out of 4 are coloured in. If it was halves, it would be 2 out of 2 are coloured in. So when the fraction is equal to a whole, the numerator and the denominator have to be the same number. And then for fractions that are more than 1 whole, like this one, 6 halves, the numerator is bigger than the denominator. You haven't got 1 half or 2 halves, you've got 6 halves. So when the numerator is bigger than the denominator, the fraction is more than 1 whole. What you're going to do now with your independent task is you're going to have a look on the next slide. There are lots of fractions and you have to look at them and decide, are they less than 1 whole? Are they equal to 1 whole? Are they more than 1 whole? If you're not sure, then maybe a strategy you could use is actually drawing the fraction. So, because once you've drawn it out, it's easier to see what's the size. So well done for working hard on your fractions. I'll speak to you next time.